We now turn to the employment options of flexible working for parents, for women, part-time working, and the Women Returners Programme. And we've got an excellent panel to bring this to life. I'm delighted to welcome Maria Lyle from the RAF Families Federation, Karen Danker from Women Returners, Felicity Cornelius Mercer from the Office of Johnny Mercer, and Julie Farr-Voller, who is a Senior Manager, Talent Acquisition at Data Miner. It is fantastic to have you all here today, and I'd really like to kick off with some introductions. So kicking off with Felicity first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your current role, and why you're taking part today? Felicity.
Sure. Hello. Thanks for having me. So, as you said, for my sins, I'm the wife of Johnny Mercer, who's a MP for Plymouth Moorview, and also the former one of the Defence Ministers. And I'm a mum of 3 girls, ranging from a teenager right down to an 18-month-old. So I have that relevant experience of having to work for the last year with a toddler in tow. And I'm coming in at this angle from transitioning. We transitioned as a family from the military into politics. But obviously before that, I had a career in airline logistics, and becoming a military wife meant essentially giving that up. Because I moved, once I met Johnny, I had to move. So I had to sort of take a back seat in what I wanted to do, which I then picked up again when Johnny decided to go into politics. So I'm speaking really from the sort of returning into work from having been a military spouse. And at the moment, I act as his campaign manager and his election agent, and I work full-time as his private secretary, doing both his Plymouth and Westminster diaries. So full-time work as well. That's me.
Thank you, Felicity. Can I go to Karen, then Julie, and then Maria? Karen, welcome.
Hi, Laura. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So my name is Karen Danker, and I'm head of coaching at a company called Women Returners. And we're a consulting, coaching and network organisation which specialises exclusively in enabling the return to work of professionals who've had an extended career break. So we partner with employers to create these supported routes back to work, back to sort of mid to senior level roles. And we also have a network of professional women. It's now over 7,000 strong, who we offer a variety of free return to work resources. So in terms of me, my background is in law. I'm a qualified solicitor. I practiced for a few years before I moved into leadership development and coaching work. And I'm a career returner myself, having had a career break after the birth of both my sons, one of which involved a relocation to the United States. So relocation thrown in there as well. So I can empathise with the journey that many career returners go on when they go back to work. I'm lucky to have a really varied role at Women Returners. So a key part is working with organisations to help them bring back returners. And once they're in role, I either deliver coaching workshops to groups of returners if they're brought in as a group, as a cohort, or one-to-one coaching to individuals when they come in. And I think one of the real joys of my work is seeing the transition that they go through very quickly in those first few months, and really seeing that professional confidence soar when they get the right support to go back to work. So I'm coming up from an angle of wanting to champion the women in the audience, and wanting to kind of really make them be proud of what they've done and their skills and their transferable skills, but also to talk to them about how organisations are bringing returners back in.
Karen, thank you. And we'll hear more about Women Returners shortly. Julie, can I go to you for your introduction?
Just to introduce, I have 17 years of recruitment and talent acquisition experience. So I've worked on the agency side, on the corporate side. I've also had my own business for 6 years. I am a mum. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm now at Data Miner heading up talent acquisition for our international business. The reason I'm here, Data Miner is extremely supportive of the service community. So we have deep roots with the service community. We've got a veterans service at Data Miner Employee Resource Group, and we have many employees globally that have come from the service community. So I guess I'm approaching it from an angle of data miner can support you to make that transition and to make it successful. And I also think we're a company that has extremely strong values around being as flexible as possible to support working parents, women and men back into full-time and flexible working. So yeah, that's my angle.
Delighted to have you. And finally, Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Maria Lyle, I'm the director of the RAF Families Federation. Sorry, my computer is just saying that it's going to low power, so I just want to check that everything is as it should be. Right, okay, carry on seamlessly. I've been in this role for 4 years. I'm an ex-serving RAF officer. I'm married to someone in the military. I have a daughter. So I've lived the experiences of a number of people who will be on this call now in terms of transitioning. In my current role, a week might include presenting to the Parliamentary Select Committee, visiting RAF units, supporting staff with more complex casework who are supporting military personnel and families. And more specifically, I am involved in 2 tri-service initiatives for women in military families who are looking to get into employment. That's Forces Families Jobs and also the Military Co-working Network. So both of those are all about supporting people who want to thrive, not just survive, who are looking for interesting careers at any level. And those are opportunities to either seek jobs through Forces Friendly Employers or in the Military Co-working Network. We've got lots of people running their own businesses, studying and networking and using physical hubs at military units to work together as spouses, reduce isolation and use those facilities. So I'm coming at it from a number of angles today. I'm really interested to hear the discussions.
Fab, thank you. Maria, I'm going to stay with you for the framing question. And here it is. Do you think we will ever be in a position where women, parents, will have the flexibility to work on their terms, whatever their personal circumstances? If we can kick off again with you, Maria.
Of course, yes. I've been listening into discussions during the day. I know there's been a lot of discussion, which I wholly support, about this being a huge question, and it should be a question for both partners in a relationship, not just women. And so whether women could be in a position to do this kind of relies really on there being some systemic change, that we don't feel that the domestic load has to be on us, and we can push back, engage in work life in the same way without that mental burden that men have, or at least shared it, that it's not all expected to be on us. And I think that, and the workplace accepting that as the right way to go about things, and not assuming that people, if they want to be in potentially a busy, demanding role, have some sort of domestic support at home, because that assumption is quite challenging, because if you're both working, well, who's doing that then? And that's something that can really put people off engaging in work. It can lead to people making a decision that it's all getting too much, they want to step away. Sometimes that's absolutely the right decision for them to make, but it shouldn't be something that someone's forced into. It should be a positive choice they're making, potentially to spend some time away from work, rather than feeling that they have no other option. So those systemic changes are things that I'm pushing for, and I would encourage any women on this call to have those difficult conversations, call it out when they see it in a supportive way, because there are some employers who don't realise it's happening, and the military itself are making assumptions that partners who are working in the military will have someone at home picking up the domestic side. Well, that's not the case anymore. We need often 2 people in employment to afford a house if you wish to purchase, and both partners want to work. So therefore, how does the military square that circle to ensure that military partners can thrive in their chosen careers as well? And they are thriving and surviving in a huge range of exciting careers. So this is not just about people going out and working for pin money. Often they have got more impressive portfolios than their military partners. So all that is I guess the big strategic picture when we're then saying, how does that affect our ability to do well in the workplace? And it's about keeping pushing those doors open, because I think they're starting to, but we have to keep applying some pressure.
Thank you. And Julie, on that note, I'd be interested on your take from a corporate perspective and data miners perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's an ever evolving situation. I definitely think that we've made a leap forward recently. I think from the corporate world, it's about ensuring that your environment is as diverse as possible. And it's proven, if you have a diverse and inclusive workforce, the organization as a whole is more creative, more productive. So there's all of this research around having that diverse workforce, but how do you get the diversity into the panel and into the pipeline for roles? So I'm at the coal face of this. I see the CVs coming through. We're going out and to target women talent, underrepresented groups. It takes time, and I think it's having the confidence to slow the process down to get the diversity into the pipeline. It's something that at Dataminer we work pretty hard on, and I also think it's visibility. So making it really, really apparent that no role is off limits to women, whether they're coming back from maternity break or they want a role that's going to have flexible hours. It should not dictate the role that they can strive to have. And I think organizations maybe should work a bit harder on that visibility of, look at this person in this senior position in our company, and at home they've got 3 children. You don't know that until maybe one of them walks across the back of the Zoom screen. So I think it's working hard on that transparency and visibility.
And Karen, what would your thoughts be in this from a women returners perspective? And then we'll go to Felicity.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the piece around, will women ever have that choice and that flexibility? I'd love to think that they would. And I think that the pandemic has been helpful in terms of, being a huge case study in flexible working with people who've never worked from home, never worked remotely, doing it and doing it productively. And so we saw, during the pandemic, that work became about outputs, right? About what you were delivering. It wasn't about where you worked or the number of hours that you were in the office and all the sort of presenteeism that we used to have. And so that's really helpful to women. And I also think that hybrid working seems to be where organizations are shifting to now, with 2 or 3 days in the office and 2 or 3 days at home. And again, that's going to be helpful to those with caring responsibilities, both women and men. And it's, hopefully going to provide greater balance for all going forward. But, and I think there is a big but here. So Timewise, who are a flexible working consultancy, they've done a big piece of research on job ads in the UK. And they've reported that 74% of all job ads in the UK are still offering no flexible working options at the point of hire. So they're still not talking about the ability to work remotely or part-time or flexibly. And so, having been through this huge working experiment in flexibility over the last 2 years, it feels like the reality of hiring hasn't moved on in the same way. So I think in terms of what can be done, so for women realising their own potential, I think that government funding can be really helpful. So we've just run a Scottish government-funded programme in Scotland, where we've taken 80 women who want to return to work through a series of workshops around professional identity, CVs, LinkedIn, interviews. And that's been brilliant. So it finished the end of February, and we've already had 20% have gone back into work. So that sort of targeted, focused funding to put women through programs and to help them build those skills and that confidence is really key. From an industry perspective, I guess it's about more employers recognizing that talent pool that's out there, and creating those opportunities, those supported routes back to work for women to come back in at the right level, with the right flexibility, the right pay, with the right support, the right training. And it is starting to happen. So for us, returner programs started in this country in 2014. There were just 3 programs. It was only in financial services, and now, we're working with over 100 employees in a broad range of sectors. And so it is getting traction, and the employers that are open to it are realizing the talent that's out there. Within the within veterans and reservists, you know, the huge raft of transferable skills that they will have honed during their time, from leadership ability to adaptability, communication skills, you know, collaboration, resilience, all these fantastic transferable skills that we know organizations really value, that different perspective, that life perspective, that wisdom. So it's waking up to that and spreading, you know, role modeling it and talking about it. And I think that's really going to really help on both fronts.
Fab, thanks. 74%. That is a really interesting stat. Wow. Felicity, what's your take on this question?
So, because it's a big question, and it's difficult to measure because you're talking about everyone's personal experiences. So the way I would come in on this is what we can do as individuals, because from what I've seen in the last 8 or so years, governments come and go, policies come and go, employment opportunities and offers come and go. So what I find more empowering is tackling it from the point of, well, what can I do as an individual? You know, I'm going through a huge change in my life. So I feel like the answer to this for individuals is to be bold, to put out there really clearly and really concisely what it is that is going to work for you. What are your parameters? What does flexibility mean to you? Does it mean job share? Does it mean work from home sometimes? Does it mean I need every Thursday to pick the children up because my husband can't do it? And I think if we take that responsibility to put us out there as what we actually need, then we are going to be shaping how we drive this forward and how the narrative is seen. Because I think employers, they're not stupid. You know, the wealth of a female workforce and the resources they have and the skills they have is so important that I think they need to realise that they've got to bend around us rather than the other way around. But we need to be very clear on that and communicate that very, very clearly, to just drive it forward so that best practice does change and the status quo will change little by little, and take that as a proactive measure. For example, all the amazing serving personnel or ex-serving personnel, you know, you be the ones to translate your skills. You be the ones to communicate you know, how this is going to work in a civilian setting. So I think taking ownership of it rather than waiting for employers. I'm not trying to advocate that it's all down to us, because obviously employers have a huge responsibility in this, but I think it's more empowering to think, well, I can try and do something about this, to try and get what I need that's going to work for my personal circumstances, and hopefully push us all towards more flexible working environments and more choice. That would be my take.
Fab, thank you. A real variety there, and we've got some great questions that have come into, and I'll ask those at the end. Can I go back to Maria? Maria, you've been at the forefront of the Forces, Families, Jobs, and the Military Co-working Hub initiatives. Why do you think it's taken a while for some probably already engaged with the veterans community to really cotton on and understand the potential of hiring from the family, the spouse, the partner talent pool?
I think possibly for quite a long time there was a slight nervousness about, as an employer, about the mobile military lifestyle, and there's this concern that you'd hire someone and they disappear, or that you'd hire someone and because their partner might need to disappear at short notice on deployment, they would be a quote unquote harder hire. Now, clearly, A, that's not true, and B, I think people have realised through initiatives like the Armed Forces Covenant, there's a moral component to this in terms of fairness to the armed forces community, but it's more than that. You know, I'm being completely pragmatic here. I'm a manager myself. I've worked in the private sector and in the civil service as well, and what I'm looking for is talent. And actually, if you've got a pool of people who are resilient, resourceful, manage a whole load of things themselves without necessarily needing support from a partner because they're used to juggling that, then what you've got here is a really strong talent pool. And if you compare, there are stats that tell us there's the year-on-year Families Continuous Attitude Survey that's conducted across the military, across tri-service, that will tell us that actually the military partner population is actually slightly better qualified than the UK average that the ONS tells us. So in terms of whether you measure that by degrees or vocational qualifications, there is a pool of people out there who want to work. So it's about making it a bit easier for them to work. It's also about recognising the entrepreneurial spirit that some people have got in the community. I was at an awards evening last night where people were invited along because the organisers of the UK Business Champion Awards recognised the military partner community, were starting businesses and doing hugely successfully well at those businesses, despite having to move and take them with them sometimes. So I'm hoping that the post-pandemic environment will continue to support this, because we should be more open to flexible working. People should be able to pick up their jobs where possible. It's not possible to do that for some, I recognise, and take them with them. And we'll continue to see this year-on-year growth, which we're seeing at the moment in the percentage of people in the spouse community working. It's actually broadly similar to the civilian community, but what surveys show is that people are not always in the jobs they would like to be in. So yes, they're working, they're not necessarily in the careers or the positions they would like to be in. And that's my ambition, is to see people progressing and feeling that they've got meaningful careers, and they're not just working around the edges of what their partner's doing.
Fab, and it segues nicely into what I'd like to ask Karen now. And Karen, you've touched already on women returners, and your programme goes into organisations, guides them, gives them advice, expertise and practical steps to help facilitate women returning to work. What are the main reasons that women are needing your organisation, and why are businesses engaging with you?
Yeah, great question. I guess women are needing our organisation because, unfortunately, there's still bias in the marketplace against those that haven't followed a traditional linear career path, that have done other things, those that have got a career gap on their CVs. There's, robots who are doing the automatic screening, and where they spot a gap, they're just automatically screening people out, and returners are getting rejected outright. So they're coming to us because we offer, this free professional network to them, where they're getting this peer support from each other, which is so valuable. We're offering them free return to work resources. We're championing them. We're looking to hear from them, to understand, what they're going through, what their experience is, so that we can translate that to employers. And we're then going into organisations and we're helping them design these supported routes back. Organisations need us because they need more talent, right? There is a war on talent at the moment. They need good people, and they need diverse talent, whether that's diversity of gender, of age, of ethnicity, of cognitive diversity. They need diverse talent. And in many cases, they're also looking to reduce their gender pay gap. They're large enough, and bringing in mid to senior level women into their organisations is really going to help them on that front. So they need us because they know that we have this professional network. So we've got reach to women, we've got reach to talent that they're looking for. But also we've got this long-standing expertise in offering this end-to-end support to them. So we will come in with them and we will help tailor a program that will fit with their business needs, with their culture, and we will help their interviewers think about how they can counter any unconscious bias they may have. We'll go in and we'll support line managers in bringing people back in and making sure they start successfully from the outset. And then when returners join the organisations, we come in and we offer that coaching support to them to make sure that we help set them up for success. We help them with their professional confidence. We help them set up sustainable ways of working, and we help them get back up to speed. So I think it's, from us, with organisations, it's a partnership, and we are looking to share our insights and our expertise, and we're looking to partner with them to make it a success, not just for them, but for the women that are coming back.
Brilliant. Felicity, you made the transition as a family from the army into politics, and I know you've also worked for your family business. What was it like for you and the family adapting to the unusual world of politics, where work is pretty much 24/7. And how did you manage family life?
Well, at the beginning, when Johnny sort of suggested this crazy plan, it's going back to talk about our parameters before and what we thought we could make work. So we knew it wouldn't be a 9 to 5 and that it was going to be a fairly sort of full-on, sort of immersive life change, if you like, as well as a job. The first thing we did was make sure the children bought in, and this might not be relevant depending on the age of your children, but because it was a lifestyle buy-in and to make it work, it had to involve all of us. So the communication with the children was super important, so that we could make the whole thing sort of go smoothly. Luckily, because we were doing it together, we had that level of flexibility, which I realise is a gift, and it doesn't come for everybody. But because we were both doing it, we therefore were able to sort of tick along with the family side as well. We had a plan. It was unknown territory, so the plan had to be very fluid and we had to adapt. But with Johnny being serving and me being a military spouse, both of us transitioning, there were a few things, because we've discussed this a lot, that we found invaluable from both sides, whether you're, married into the military or whether you are actually serving. So I'm just going to share very quickly the top things that we learned to transition. So the first one would be that we had to back ourselves. We know we had the skills, but we had to sell that to other people. Now that's no different to your average interview. You are selling yourself. And I think a lot of people from the forces, they've been part of a team and they haven't necessarily honed those skills of selling themselves. That's a really important thing to look at, is to back yourself and learn how to sell those skills and translate those skills to make it easy for other people to understand. And never undervalue the things that you've done and the experiences that you've picked up, because they all mean something. So that was important. We had to be incredibly proactive, chase down these opportunities. They weren't just going to land in your lap. So you had to go out there and fight for these things, chase them down. But I always like that, because I think in a way you've got control of that. How much you do and how much you put in, you're going to get something back. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Is this going to take you out of your comfort zone? You're going to take away from your comfort and your familiar environment. But if you fear failing, it's not really going to work. Whereas every failure, you learn something. So it's not really a failure. It's a learning curve. Always be honest. The people we spoke to, we've all seen that sort of car crash interview with the journalist and the politician, and damn well the politician has no idea about what they're talking about, but they're still desperately waffling on, trying to answer the question. So always be honest. We aren't built to all know everything. So be human and be honest. Managing our expectations was a big one. The military, with its structure and its hierarchy, and everyone's following the same rules. Everyone wants everyone to do well. Well, Civvy Street can seem very chaotic compared to that. And you have to be prepared that it can be dog eat dog, and not everyone is playing by the same rules. So it's good to be aware of those things. Stay positive. Your attitude is your marker in the sand as to how you're going to attack this. And this is a huge, thing in your life that you're doing. So positivity was always good. And Johnny and I did that. We were just so determined that we were going to try and make this work. And my last one, which is a big one, is don't be shy to ask for help. You are coming out of your comfort zone and you will need a support network. And if you're going somewhere new, then put the hours and the resources into finding a new support network, because you will need to rely on people at certain times. And that's it really. What else do I want to say to you lovely people? Just a message of hope really, and be excited. There's so many opportunities out there that you all have the skills to go and grab. And it is exciting. And even if our plan hadn't worked, we had learned so much along the way that we would have taken it to the next plan. So always just keep learning and keep adapting, and don't be afraid of trial and error. And good luck. Yes.
Felicity, your attitude is the marker in the sand. I love it. Can I wrap up with Julie? Julie, what do you think the corporate world, and perhaps drawing on data miner as your primary example, What's the corporate world doing to proactively engage and make it easier for women or parents to have a flexible career? And what else do you think needs to be done?
Yeah, okay. So I think in terms of data miner, we're fairly transparent that maybe not every role could be hired with a flexible situation, but what we do maintain is that we're open to the conversation on every single role, and where we can, we'll accommodate requests. So I actually work 4.5 days a week. It's a fairly unusual situation in the TA team, but I felt really passionate about having that extra half day with my daughter while she's still tiny and not at school. So I, was pretty strong that in order for me to join, it is a prerequisite for me, and had to sort of suppress that inner anxiety and sort of strive for it. And I find a lot of people don't realize that I'm 4.5 days. It is actually something that I don't hide. I'm not ashamed of it. It's for a reason. I think I'm still absolutely hitting all the criteria for my roles and doing it 4.5 days. The other thing that Data Miner does that I really like is that we regularly survey the entire workforce, so women and men, to find out what they need, where we've got gaps, how we can be a better employee of choice for our current base. And that also then helps us when we go out into the market to attract talent. So we offer unlimited sick leave, and that's included if your children are ill, or if the wheels come off the childcare, like happens frequently at the moment with COVID. You don't need to panic about taking a sick day to look after your child. So that's been majorly helpful for a lot of our team. We also noticed that we had a slight gap, and we've brought in this amazing benefit with a company called Carrot. We have $10,000 US for every employee to assist them in their parenting journey, whether that be fertility, adoption. It's an amazing benefit, and we felt that was really important and missing. So I think we just try to continuously improve and help to attract that diverse talent. So I think the work is never done, but we just keep trying to improve, basically.
This panel is around career confidence, and I'm delighted to say that Paula is back from JP Morgan, and Annette Berry from RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity, joins Paula, as does Sam Wood from St James's Place and Leona Barr-Jones from Focus 7. If we could start with just a short introduction, a bit about your background, and then we'll go into the questions. Paula, can I start with you? And then we'll go to Leona, Sam, and Annette. Paula, welcome again.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad I was allowed to come back. I obviously didn't disgrace myself too badly this morning. So I'm Paula Humphrey. I look after diversity, equity and inclusion for a 45,000 person organisation within JP Morgan, which is called DMPS, which will mean nothing. It's digital and platform services, which is basically everything in the corporate investment bank that isn't front office. This has been my life only for about 6 months. My career has been mainly focused on careers advisory and graduate recruiting. So working with people starting out in their career, but a lot of time with career changes and people making career jumps. So I did the same thing and had a pivot about 6 months ago. And yeah, have been with JP Morgan for just over 4 years now.
Thank you. Leona, good to see you again.
Hi, thanks, Laura. Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All good. Excellent. So Leona Barr-Jones, I served for 20 plus years in the regular army. Very lucky because like Laura and some others in the audience, I was Adjutant General's Corps and obviously focused that on people and finance. And I also had lots of military training roles as well. So really transferable skills, which is fantastic and very useful. I left in 2011 and joined the Army Reserve and did a couple of jobs with that at Cambridge University Officer Training Corps. And I was up at Army Personnel Centre as well, doing some career management as SO in Reserves, which was brilliant. And now I work with the cadets as a senior leader, which is very, very rewarding. And I just finished being Commandant, and I've spent the last 6 months as Colonel Cadets at 7th Brigade in Headquarters East, looking after all the Army cadets in East Midland. So that's my sort of green credentials. But when I left in 2011, I'm not getting sound. Somebody's not getting sound. Can you hear me okay though?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yep.
So when I left in 2011, I did some management consultancy. I know some of your speakers were talking about that earlier. set up in business, and I can obviously advise people on how to do that with Capita, with Nightworks and Transport for London on the Olympic programme. And I still do a bit of that. I've just done some work with Bays down in the centre, and obviously worked in M&D main building for a little while. But alongside that, I own and co-founded Focus 7, which is a strategic marketing and branding business. And thank you, Lou's just shared Focus 7 there. I'm very happy to help and advise anybody I can.
Fab. Leona, thank you. Sam, it's lovely to have you as part of our Women into Employment event. A quick introduction, please, and then we'll go to Annette. Sam.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. And I guess I'd start with saying what a great opportunity to be here and give something back. I personally have found the Officers Association incredibly useful at every pivot point in my career, a network that I've always found I could rely on. So it's great to be part of the session today. I'd like to call my career of 25 years today varied and colourful. I started off joining the army at 16 as an apprentice soldier in the Royal Signals, served for about 6 years before then going on to complete my commissioning course and then remaining in the Royal Signals. So in total, I served about 11 years, 10 or 11 years. And I like to call that my chapter 1. It feels like a really sort of, a decade or so of my first chapter of sort of growing. And it felt like it laid the foundations for me in terms of my leadership skills, my operational capabilities, communication, and perhaps most importantly, and I've heard a lot of this today, actually, I've only been able to join later this afternoon, around my ability to adapt, not just on the sort of day-to-day micro level, but with large-scale change. And then I've gone on to what I call my chapter 2, which is my civilian career to date. And I would like to say, and we'll go on to this later in the session, my initial role wasn't the right role. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that it's okay to make mistakes, and that you actually learn a lot from your failures. And actually, I often go back to how it felt when I made the wrong decisions or when I was in the wrong environment to help me make really crucial career decisions. So, but where I am now, after about a decade in financial services, having worked with Rathbones, Investec, I'm now with St James's Place Wealth Management. It is the largest advice manager, financial advice management firm within the UK. And we have a really large community of ex-services and actually a number of reservists as well. Obviously, we're part of the Armed Forces Covenant, and I would say that as a company and as a sector, we really do support military and ex-military. So that's me.
Fab, thank you. Annette, it's brilliant to see you. I know you're dialing in from the Career Transition Partnership Employment Workshop today. Thank you for joining us. Annette, quick introduction from yourself, please.
Bingo.
That's it.
It's all right. I didn't have the control. Apologies all. I'm sat in my car in Gordano Services on my way back from Newbury to home. But my name is Annette Berry and I work for RFEA, the Forced Employment Charity, as the Military Women Programme Employment Advisor. My role is national. And I work with female veterans, helping and supporting them into employment. My background is ex-military. I was QARNC, so I was a nurse. I trained in the Corps and then subsequently commissioned and served 13 years. After that, I moved into the commercial world and then into the third sector. So I cover pretty much all bases.
Brilliant. Fab. Thank you, Annette. Let me start with a framing question. Leona, I'm going to come to you first. And the question is, what does career confidence mean to you? And what do you think the key components of it are? Leona.
Great question, Laura. I think that career confidence is slightly different from your self-confidence, because it is the building block for career confidence is slightly different. And it really is important to get that right, to have that confidence in yourself, whether you're going off to apply for new roles or whether you want to set up in business, be an entrepreneur, whatever it is you want to do with your own career, it's really important to build that career confidence. And the building blocks, I would say, are really to find your passion. That is the first thing. I'm going to give you 3 Ps, Laura. I like 3 things. Those of you will remember the 6 Ps in the military. It'll be a little bit like that. So we're going to start with passion. Really, you've got to find something that you're going to be enthusiastic about. Find your passion. And that's whether you're going into business, being a consultant, or whether you're obviously going for a corporate role, or even working in a small, medium enterprise. Really do something that you love. Because we don't really think about that in the military or in the armed forces community. We get on with it. I think somebody was talking about it in one of the other groups. You have your mission, you get on with it, you make it happen. But if you're going to get up every day and go and do something, you need to be enthusiastic and passionate about it. And that will help you with your career confidence. And then the next thing, I talk a lot with our clients about finding your purpose. And this goes whether you're in business, whether you are in any role that you're looking for, is be values-based, look for your values, set your goals, and find a higher purpose. And why I say this is that you've got to find a reason to do what you do. You've got to find a reason to get up on that Monday morning. And if you can find your purpose and your values align, and I know a lot of the employers here really do a lot of great work on their values, but us from the armed forces community, we instinctively have values and standards, and we want to seek that out. So I would say seek out those shared values and purpose. And then my 3rd P is plan. From a career confidence perspective, plan. Look at what you've done throughout your career, the military career or other career that you've done, and see how you can translate that into what you want to do and achieve. Get yourself a mentor and get the training for your gaps. And if you're thinking about resettlement for those that are thinking of leaving, something like the Manchester Business School AMAC course is really, really good at translating the military strategic work that you might be doing, some of your listeners might be doing, into city speak and corporate work. So that's my 3 Ps for career confidence: passion, purpose, and planning.
Boom, brilliant. Passion, purpose, planning, love it. Can I go to Annette, then Sam, and then Paula? Annette, what does career confidence mean to you?
It means owning the space, having a voice, and being able to translate the skills and experience and the aptitudes that we gain in the military or as military spouses into recognizable, fluent words that the civilian employers, organizations can understand and work with.
I love it. So succinct and so clear. Brilliant. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, brilliant. Love that, Annette. And Leona, I think we've come from the same school of thought. I'm going to use 3 things, but not the 3 Ps. I'm going to go for the ABC of career confidence. And actually it really links to something Annette just said there around remaining anchored. So the A for me is about remaining anchored, and it really relates as well to the values piece, but also understanding your passion, because if you're anchored in what you know drives you, what you know you're good at, when you know you're performing at your best, and equally when you know you're not, then actually you can have that confidence to really trust yourself, trust your judgment, and know that you're in the right place, and you can be thinking about those things. And I remember when I was moving into financial services, and I was asked at an interview with a firm that should not be named, that I went on to spend 5 years there. So they clearly had faith in me. But they asked me to go to an interview presenting on the financial services. And I thought, I know nothing about financial services. So I went to the interview and took a bit of a risk. And I spent 10 minutes presenting on my transferable skills. And I got the job. And I guess the message there is about, and it actually links to Annette's point, if you can be anchored in what you know your strengths are, also be really aware of what aren't your strengths, then that can really help you when you're transitioning or just throughout your career. The other one for me is about bringing you and being you. One of the lessons I've really learned around being authentic and vulnerable is actually bringing yourself to work. and actually recognizing that we are, you know, I'm a mum and stepmom of 4 children. I have a really busy life in and out of work, and that clearly it all needs to integrate and work together. So again, I know I'm performing at my best, and I get on, you know, best within a business and a team when I'm being me, genuinely me, not putting on a different hat or front when I come to work. The other one is about remaining current, and it also links to what Leona was saying earlier. And I think it's about remaining current is about continuing to grow, continuing to learn. And that doesn't just mean qualifications, but it also means just listening, reading, understanding what's happening, not just, you know, within the world, but also in your business and sector. And so, yeah, the ABC, anchored, bring you, and being current, that for me brings a huge amount of confidence from a career perspective.
Fab. Paula, sorry, Sam, thank you. Paula, what are your thoughts?
I don't know how I can follow all of that. I mean, obviously, I'd agree with all of those. And what Sam just said about bringing yourself to work, that's a huge part of my job. We really focus on the I, the inclusion, and that means that everyone can turn up and be them because we've hired you. And I think sometimes that's what people forget. I guess for me, career confidence is when you feel you can do things on your own terms. And it really resonated when Sam said about I was in situations where I failed and I knew I got it wrong. And I've worked in my careers advisor days with a lot of people who waited until they got to crisis to try and do something about it because they were scared of what happens next and what if I fail. And I think, you know, it is a privilege to be able to be in that position, but career confidence is, to me, is being able to own it and say, I'm not happy, so I'm going to take a risk, or I don't know if I can get that job, but I'm going to go for it. And obviously there are always going to be things that you have to consider. You know, I couldn't say to my husband, I've decided I'm going to try my hand at being a Cirque du Soleil artist, which means I need to take the next 7 years off to learn how to do gymnastics. So we've got no income from me for the next 7 years. He's not going to buy that. But if I said to him, look, I'm going to take a pay cut to be able to go and do this, we've probably got something to own there. So I think it's being able to do things on your own terms in terms of don't wait until you're unhappy. But I also think there's a lot of power and confidence in being able to dictate the pace at which you go, particularly in the kind of organisation I'm in. Everyone's end goal is the promotion, the next thing. It's almost like we've all got those headbands with a little thing sticking out the top and you're all following them. And I read a really great article and then spoke to a friend of mine who works in the police force, who said, sometimes you want to surge and sometimes you want to pause. And I think being in control of saying, you know what, I'm really happy where I am. Everything is imbalanced. I'm delivering. I feel good about what I'm doing. Work life, home life, everything else I've got is in balance. I'm okay here. I think that takes real confidence, and not to sort of follow in the herd and go, I'm not good enough. I'm not pushing promotion. So I think for me, it was being able to do things on your own terms.
Fab. Paula, can I stay with you actually? I'm working for a global bank. Do you think there's a certain level of confidence required to succeed in a large corporate? And what advice would you give anyone that's looking at that sector?
I think there is, but I don't think it's necessarily in the way that people would think. And again, Sam will know this because you've been through various financial services organisations, so you know how the beast works. I think there are the very visible stereotypical types of parts of the bank where you need confidence to manifest in a certain way. So, you know, if you're on the trading floor and the pressure's on and you're getting things done, that speaks to confidence in a certain type of way. You've got to be confident in your decision making. You've not got to be scared to lose a bit of money. I think there's a preconception that it's the same energy throughout the whole bank. And I think one of the great things for me about working in a huge corporate is there's place for everyone. You just need to work out where that is. So there's a certain energy in DE&I, and there's a lot of us doing this. And it's very different from the energy that you might get in the tech business that I support. and the kind of the way that you show up and the confidence needed in those different areas is going to be different. So I need to have confidence in knowing that I can make things better for people, or feeling that I can put my own beliefs and needs aside and focus on others. For my tech colleagues, it's I've got to have the confidence that I can deliver product and get things out. So I think everyone thinks you've got to be super confident, when we say confident, I think they get that confused with being an extrovert and being the loudest in the room. And that's not how it is. I think the confidence you need is knowing what value, exactly as the other said, what value you're bringing and understanding where that value sits. And there will be a place for that in an organisation. And if you want to feel confident coming into a corporate, just work out where your value sits, and that's where you should spend your time, and that's where you go. We're working very hard on moving away from this fixed idea of what good looks like to more value-based things. If it's how you deliver what you do, and I think that's a great example of where you can lean into where's my confidence and value. I hope that makes sense.
It does. No, that's a brilliant answer. And I'm going to segue into Sam, actually. Sam, you recently wrote an article on the great reflection and the positive approach to change. Can you talk us through it briefly and just how it evokes a sense of career confidence?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So I don't know about others on the call today, but I think the great reflection feels like something maybe many of us can relate to. I've been feeling it myself. I've been witnessing it around me. And I don't think it's just sector specific. I think there's a real societal shift that's been happening. There's been a real acceleration in terms of the changes in the workplace, and particularly around technology, but also actually, as Paula mentioned, around diversity, inclusion, and ensuring that there's a real, that businesses really do what they say they're going to do. I think that's the thing. We can see and hear a lot of rhetoric around diversity and inclusion, but actually being part of an organisation that is actually doing that, I think is really fundamental. I guess for me, what I've witnessed in, I know part of the question was about what I've witnessed in the industry as sector, and then I'd like to just sort of segue back really briefly into what I mentioned before about the different chapters, is that, I think when I say societal shift, clients want different things as well. So at the heart of any business, but obviously financial services are there to serve clients, and clients are looking to get their advice or access their investments or cash, whatever it might be, in a really different way. And that means they're much more open to using technology, meeting virtually. They don't want jargon. They want to hear it in a really sort of down to earth, day to day sort of manner. And I've really sort of seen that change. And that means also then they're much more open to the fact that some people will work from home a lot more. And, I've always worked from home to a degree, so normally 1 or 2 days a week whilst I've been at St James's Place, and really flexible organisation, and actually others as well. But now it's more the norm. Now it isn't you're justifying working from home and you're doing it because you need to. Actually, it can really bring a lot to flexibility or productivity, all of those different sorts of things. So I think that was around the reflection. The other thing for me, just going back to the chapter 1, and one of the things that I've really sort of thought about, I sort of looked at 5 different lessons. The first one for me was about, I think we mentioned earlier, failing fast. And whether that's in a career decision or whether it's fail quickly, just recognize really quickly, put your hands up, fail fast, and reflecting on whether you're failing or whether you want to use that term. But I've worked when I've been in the best teams, people have not been afraid to fail. They've actually wanted to go out and push the boundaries, and that means they're not afraid to fail. I think the other lesson, I'll touch this really briefly because Leonie's already mentioned it, is reflecting that I need to be doing something I'm passionate about. I'm at my best when I know I'm able to really drill down to my passion. Might not be everything as part of the role, but that it comes down to my passion. And I see that with people in my teams or people around me. If they're passionate about it, they'll be amazing. If they're not, then obviously not so much. The other ones I've already mentioned, really, around growing and ensuring that you're really sort of sure about your skills. But the final one for me is really about that change element. So about creating your own change. I think we've said a lot of this in different ways, owning it, like Annette said. I love that, like absolutely owning your change and taking the decision. And that's what I see a lot of, both in myself, in the sector, but society, is people starting to own it and take responsibility, not showing up and saying, well, I don't get the work-life balance I need, or I don't get to do these things. Well, if you don't get to do those things, make them happen. Yeah. And I think that would be my sort of underlying point, is take the reins, be purposeful, be full of intent, don't be afraid to fail. And actually that will give you a huge amount of career confidence, and I believe actually make you really successful and happy as well.
Fab. Wow, brilliant answer. Leona, you've been successful in civilian and military leadership roles, including starting up your own business. Do you think there's a certain type of confidence needed to look at something and start it up from scratch?
Yeah, definitely. It's a scary place, owning a business and being responsible for 20 or so people's mortgage payments in their lives, especially over the last few years.
Yeah.
And yeah, this case it's a little bit like being a sub-unit commander, but the buck stops with you and you have to pay the salary as well. But from a confidence perspective, I think it's everything we've all been talking about. Is as I touched on earlier, is that passion, purpose, and planning is really important. And I love that I love that Sam and Paul and Annette have actually all talked about and hinted about inclusive leadership and authentic leadership. I think you really, really need that. But the key thing is resilience. If you want to start up a business and you want to be self-employed, and actually have people work for you and you're responsible for them, then yes, you've got all the leadership skills. All of us in the armed forces community are organised, we're structured, we can naturally get stuff done, can't we? So that leadership is natural, I think, to all of us and everybody who's listening. But it's that next level of resilience, and I love that Sam just talked about, fail fast, and of course one of the strap lines for one of the army recruitment campaigns is fail to win, and definitely fail to learn. I think it was Edison that said every time he didn't get that light bulb on, however many thousands of times, he said that's one step closer to me getting the right answer. So resilience and positive, and I know a lot of people in the room will be reading lots of really good positive personal development pieces, and if you want to be self-employed, that's really, really important. And I'm going to pull out networking as well, because there's a lot of support available for startups, and networking is really, really critical. And I'm delighted that we've got John, who's obviously the Director General of Institute Directors, speaking later as one of our allies. They're very supportive, and quite a lot of people who will be listening will be eligible to become directors. And I'm a fellow of the Institute Directors and been an ambassador for a number of years. Very supportive of the armed forces. I won't steal any of this, Sam, just going to talk about that later. But IOD is really a good, safe place to do some networking. But also, if you're going to set up in business, the Ex-Forces Enterprise is I know you partner with them from the Officers Association. They are absolutely brilliant at helping with startup loans, helping with support, advice, and actually Focus 7, we run a number of their marketing masterclasses for them, and there's a great network as well. So there's a lot of help and support there. And I'm also going to give a shout out to the Defence Relationship Management team, because if you are in business, whatever size, then the Employer Recognition Scheme offers you really great networking. And at Focus 7, we're proud to be Gold Award winners for our support for the Armed Forces. And if you're just on that journey, sign the Armed Forces Covenant, get your bronze, and then the networking you get and the support from the silvers and golds in your region is really good and positive.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap up with Annette, and then I'm going to pass back to Johnny to do our final Euro Allies session. Annette, you specialise in the area of women employability at RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity. Can you tell us briefly what the impact of your amazing work has been?
It can support women who perhaps have been out of employment for a very long time. Because they've stepped off their career path, they don't get the opportunity, they've not had the opportunity made available to them in any shape or form to get back on that pathway. And it's about listening to them, it's about focusing on what they want as the individual, working out where their red lines are, working out actually what they really enjoy doing, where their talents, their skills, those aptitudes again, where they land. It's about, like I said before, owning the space, and as Sam said, failing well, because it doesn't matter if you fail, you are still achieving something by trying. And it's about the communication piece. If I get to know somebody one-to-one, I can then support them with exactly what they need. We're all individual, we all have hopes and dreams. And it is literally about making sure that those dreams are achievable through support, through training, through networking, as Leona said, a massive thing. And I will use my network in any way possible to support people. But it does come down to giving people the confidence to communicate effectively, to own that space, not to be scared to show the emotion and ask for things, to talk to people, to recognize that they have value.
I love that. Listen to the individual. Love it. What an amazing panel, and what a brilliant panel to wrap up today with. I'm going to pass over to Johnny now for your allies section. Leona, Sam, Paula and Annette, thank you so much for being part of Women into Employment today. Thanks.
And to close out the day, and our final quick short message from our allies, we're really delighted to have from across government, from across industry as well, 3 fantastic speakers. So it's brilliant to be joined by the Director General of the Institute of Directors, John Geldart. We also have Chris Recchia, who's a veteran, a partner at Deloitte and founding member of the Veterans Work Campaign, where the OA has played a key part for many years. And finally, we have Jessie Owen, who is the Director of the Office for Veterans Affairs, an office that sits within the Cabinet Office of UK Government. So perhaps if we could turn to Chris first, it'd be really good to get your perspective on what we're here to discuss today, what you've heard so far, and perhaps a view on the wider issue of women into employment. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Johnny. It's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. And thank you for having me. It's great to be here on an individual basis, and it's also great to be here representing Deloitte and also Veterans Work and all of the campaign that we've done together with the OA and Forces in Mind Trust. I've been listening to the last hour and a half or so, and I'm kind of struggling to understand why you need me here, because all of the messages that I am hearing and everything that everybody is talking about, it's kind of what I've got written on my paper here, and so I found that quite curious. But from my point of view, I spent some time thinking about, why I think females are good for business, and there's a whole raft of different reasons. But maybe in the short time that I've got, I could summarize where I got to. And like I say, we've heard a number of brilliant points made by previous speakers. Just to be really clear, and this for me is about diversity of thought, not gender. What females bring into industry and into business is that diversity of thought. And if ever we needed a time for that diversity of thought, that time is now. We live in extraordinary times for all kinds of different reasons, but those extraordinary times also bring extraordinary opportunities as well. And I think females in industry bring just a whole different dynamic to business. I was thinking about the relationships that I've got with my clients, and I was thinking about a large investment bank that I work with, and I kid you not, the best relationships that I have got in that organization are with females, and those females are senior leaders. They are the Chief Information Security Officer, they are the head of human capital, they are the Chief Administrative Officer of a global investment bank, and they are brilliant, brilliant relationships. And you know, they just bring so much to the table. I think as a group, I've heard the things about being your authentic self and self-empowerment and resilience, and you know, breaking the bias and barriers. I've heard all of those things. As I sit here now, I think it's really, really simple. I think there's a huge opportunity, especially in this future of work, this new future of work era where we are remote, we can be hybrid, you can balance work with life, and it's acceptable. But I think, you know, you've got to have no fear. We've heard people saying, take a risk. I think you've got to be positive. You've got to give yourself permission, and you've got to know that somebody's got your back. And I believe that, and I think it's true. And I, for one, and certainly Deloitte, are fully subscribed to having females across our organization, whether it's at the graduate level, right the way through. You know, we're committed to 50-50 recruitment. We want more senior females on our executive, on our board, leading our business. And for me, like today, it's like, okay, how do I tap into this talent pool, and how do I bring more people in, Johnny? That's actually what I want to do. It's not about whether it'll work. I know it'll work. It's like, how do I do it? And we want to do more of it because we've seen the benefits and we know that it's a great thing to do. I could go on, Johnny, actually, and I'm really quite passionate about it. You know, you asked me to give a pledge. I'll maybe save my pledge for later, but I'm fully subscribed. I don't need convincing. Deloitte doesn't need convincing. I actually don't think we need to talk about the why bit anymore. What we need to do is just do it and get on with it, and bring more females into industry, into those senior positions, right the way through organizations, and give them the permission to operate.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you for all that you do with veterans work in particular, and everything that Deloitte does. And having our backs, I think, is a key phrase there that I'll take with me. And that's certainly what we do in the armed forces community. Thank you, Chris. Next up, we have John from the Institute of Directors, the Director General of the IOD. John, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you. What's your response from the IOD's perspective, please?
Thanks for allowing me to come on today. And I was listening, excuse me, I was listening to the last session in particular, and I would echo some of the things that are said. And thanks to Leona for having my back on the IOD and recommending what she recommended. Of course, that means that I don't have to, because she has. The things that we're reflecting on is look at the IOD. Many people won't have heard of the Institute of Directors. What is it this organization does, and why does it matter, and what's it doing around not only supporting women, but also supporting the return to work of women in the armed forces and generally the armed forces. So the Institute of Directors has been around since 1903. It got its royal charter in 1906. And at that time, it was really, it was very clear about what its purpose was. And we've heard other speakers talk about purpose. And if you refine it and you distill down what is the purpose of this institution in the United Kingdom, it is there and defined as creating better directors so that they're in better businesses, so that those businesses are more sustainable, so they support the UK economy. That's the essence of why the IOD was set up. So better directors, you could say better world. And we know from all of the evidence, whether you look at the work that was done by the Hampton-Alexander Review, or you look at the work that we've seen from the evidence of FTSE, we know, Standard & Poor's, etc., we know that where we have diverse boards, we see shareholder value increase. And why is that? One of the things we teach, that part of the idea, we have three things we do. We connect. So Leona has already said that we are, if you like, we believe we're great at supporting people to connect, to network. And that's one of our three legs of our three-legged stool of our strategy. It's about connecting directors, peer to peers. And I would say directors and equivalents, those people holding authority and responsibility for organizations or parts of organizations where essentially they hold the lives of others in their hands. And never was that more the case than in the armed forces. So we connect people. The second thing we do is we develop people. We develop the skills that people need in order to be the best directors they can be, the best directors or equivalents they can be. And I would just say, go and look on iod.com, and if you look on there, and you'll find the courses and the activities we do. And as a membership organization, we provide a lot of the resources, be it from a startup point of view, right through to FTSE directors and non-execs training we do. We provide the training and support that is necessary for people to be, if you like, the best directors and equivalents we can be. And the third thing we do, and I hesitate to say this with someone from the Cabinet Office on, but we actually exert some influence. And it's an immense privilege that we are one of the 5 business organizations that work very, very closely with the government and have done so throughout COVID in particular, and obviously now. So we join with the CBI, the Federation of Small Business, Make UK, who represent manufacturers, and also the chambers from around the UK. So we are one of the 5 business organizations that every Monday afternoon, it doesn't happen this Monday because Kwasi was away, we meet with the business secretary, we engage with the Treasury, and we engage with DFE and others in order to provide a lens, if you like, a reflection, a true reflection on what it is that matters to mid-corporate businesses in the United Kingdom, because that's essentially the core of our essence of our offer. So we connect people one to another, we develop the skills of directors and equivalents, and we help to talk to and represent, so we help influence the people who affect the business community of the United Kingdom for the betterment of the business community of the United Kingdom. And I was really struck by more of the words that is talked about earlier. Purpose, yes, we have a really clear purpose, better directors for a better world, but also this notion of resilience. Now, I've done a lot of stuff. If you bother to look me up on LinkedIn you Google me, you'll find that I've done a lot of stuff in the outdoors. I was very fortunate to do a lot of exploration in the Arctic, and I've been all over the world. And one thing that we know is that teams are never teams unless they've got their backs to the wall. And what happens then is you need the support of your peers. And so much more do we need the support of a balanced peer group in order to make the right decisions. And we teach this in our courses, that we don't get groupthink. One of the great disservices that is done to business by all male boards is groupthink. We just don't think the same. And that's so essential. It's so critically important for the way that businesses are run, that they enable themselves to challenge themselves through having a diverse board and diverse leadership, diversity and across the organization. And that's where we are absolutely committed. We've signed up to the covenant. We've got our bronze, we've got our silver, and we're going for gold. We absolutely see the value that we have. And we've just employed a new director who's ex-armed forces as of this Monday. We absolutely see the value of the expertise and experience and knowledge and skills that ex-armed forces leadership have. So I'll stop there. There's a lot more I could say, but absolutely committed. I would hope that others would look back at the IOD and say, actually, we can support you in being the best you can be as you go out into the civilian world and start to stretch your wings in areas maybe you've never thought about doing.
Thank you, John, for that overview from the IOD. And finally, to close out this Allies section, we have Jessie Owen, who leads the Office of Veterans Affairs at the Cabinet Office. Jessie, welcome.
Thanks, Johnny, and I'm delighted to be given the opportunity to speak at this event, kind of really celebrating and championing and supporting women from the armed forces community into employment. This is something that's really important to government from 2 angles. firstly on the employment side and supporting kind of the really effective employment across the armed forces community is a top priority for us, but also doing more to support women from the armed forces community is something that we want to do a lot more on. I'm particularly sort of pleased to see that the event is sponsored by the National Cyber Force. So I'm not a veteran myself, but I've been a civil servant for almost 15 years, and a lot of that work has been working in national security roles. And many years ago now, in a different cabinet office role, I led the National Cyber Security Programme and was part of the team kind of setting the groundwork for the National Cyber Security Centre. So I know firsthand what a brilliant sort of exciting career you can have in cybersecurity. But I also know that, you know, cyber and national security writ large is also a sector that needs more women, and definitely needs more women and more women in senior roles. So I'm really encouraged to see the National Cyber Force sort of on this at this event today, and seeing that sector trying to reach out and trying to recruit more women. And I absolutely encourage everyone to consider it, and reassure you that you know, don't worry if you don't have cyber skills, you don't have an IT background. I didn't either. But it provided some of the most kind of fun and challenging and interesting work that I've done in my civil service career. But back to my day job, which is the amazing job I have today, which is leading the Office for Veterans Affairs. As Johnny said, that's in the Cabinet Office. So we're right at the sort of heart of government, being able to use all of the levers of being closer, number 10 and the Treasury, to get all of government to knit together and improve what our offer is to people as they move out of the armed forces. So our role is to drive that kind of coordination, to encourage departments to kind of think about veterans as they're developing their policies and services, and to share insight on the armed forces community, so that there's a much better understanding, so that veterans and their families can kind of have that kind of knowledge kind of spread more widely across government. You might have spotted in January this year, we launched the Veteran Strategy Action Plan that sets out what government is going to do over the next 2 years to deliver on the broader kind of 10-year strategy, focusing on sort of 3 broad areas: that understanding piece, so doing a lot more work on research and data, transforming policies and services so they better meet the needs of the armed forces community, and championing our veterans. And sort of under those 3 headings, I want to talk about kind of 2 important priorities, which I mentioned at the beginning. And the first one is around employment. It's really kind of key for our ministers, and our Minister for Defence, People and Veterans has said, you know, multiple times that a kind of a good employment is a foundation for then a wide range of positive sort of life outcomes. So it's absolutely one of the key things that we want to help enable from a government perspective. We know, and there's been a lot of talk about that this afternoon, that veterans, you know, have an amazing sort of skill set and really rich experience that can be of value to employers, as Chris from Deloitte was setting out. And we're particularly interested in the next 2 years of focusing on how we enable more of that use in the public sector. So we are rolling out something called the Great Place to Work scheme, which gives veterans sort of a kind of a foot in the door, if you like, to get into the civil service. We also have we're extending a scheme called the Going Forward into Employment, which helps people who have perhaps haven't had the same life chances and have barriers to getting into employment, to get directly employed into the civil service, again, to gain experience and improve the likelihood of them having a successful career. And that's, you know, not only open to veterans, but it is also open to veterans, and I think in the near future to their partners and families as well. We work closely with NHS colleagues on the programme they have called Step Into Health, which has been really successful at getting people into the NHS across a range of clinical and sort of management and other roles. The MOJ have recently launched a scheme to encourage service leavers to move into the prison service. Various police forces are setting up a number of different schemes, and we're trying to enable learning across the different police forces about encouraging people from the armed forces into the police. We're working with Department for Education on similar things to get people into the education sector. So I would encourage everyone in this room really to consider continuing to serve the public and sort of transitioning from military to wider public service, because it is a great place to work, and it's particularly a great place for women to work, both from the opportunities and the sort of breadth of experience that you can get. And I've worked right across the NHS and different departments in operational policy and strategy roles, but also the kind of the work-life balance that you can get certainly seems to be a real sort of bonus from being in the public sector. And John mentioned sort of partnership and working closely, and that's also another thing that the OVA wants to achieve, is to work really closely in collaboration with industry on this. And we're setting up an employee advisory board so that we can get more clearly and sort of the views and insights from industry so that we can again optimize what we're doing to meet what business needs. So another kind of priority I've mentioned is about sort of thinking about women veterans and underrepresented groups of veterans. We want to do more to sort of recognise and celebrate the kind of diversity of the veteran cohort. But research and like the report that came out of the Defence Select Committee recently does highlight that women veterans do face different challenges. They have a different experience serving, positive and negative, and have different sort of transition and support needs. We're doing more research to understand that and understand sort of what those needs are and how we best enable access so that women have the absolute best opportunity to get the help they need to kind of manage the transition and get the most kind of positive effect, whether that's you know, women kind of and service leavers, veterans, or the kind of families and partners as well. Another thing I want to talk about was just around kind of challenging and changing perceptions of what a veteran looks like, what sort of experience they have, the talent that they can then harness. We want to make, you know, we in government want to make the most of the kind of armed forces community as a sort of strategic asset, if you like. And so, you know, all of that time and money that we've invested in training you and enabling you to develop and grow in your current role, you know, how do we make sure that we're making the best of that in our not just our public services, but the sort of UK economy overall? And I'm sure everyone on this call today sort of exemplifies the fantastic offer that someone from the armed forces can make to a future employer, and you'll all rightly feel proud of your service and what you've contributed by your time in the military, and the public should feel proud of that as well. We want to help sort of explain and celebrate their achievements and deepen that public understanding of what life in military service is about, and the great skills and experience that it gives you. We've recently done some work with the Telegraph newspaper as a sort of media partnership, sharing case studies and trying to highlight the business benefit of hiring veterans to the business community, to kind of see how that lands, and does that have an impact on kind of broadening the number of industries and businesses which are kind of think about and become sort of forces friendly. We're also doing some research on public perceptions and business perceptions of the armed forces community, so that we can tailor our comms and really understand how to overcome any sort of stereotypes or misjudgments about the armed forces and remove some of those barriers that might be in place. And we're doing all of this so that employers, a bit like Chris and Delight, will be falling over themselves to hire you, and that you can all find the right sort of meaningful, rewarding employment once you've left the armed forces. So be absolutely assured that government and the OVA is your ally in this, and sort of any sort of thoughts, insight, feedback, ideas, suggestions, you know, do find a way of getting them to us, because we absolutely want to work with you and with the community to make this work. So thank you for listening, and good luck with the next stage of your career.
Thank you, Jessie. What a canter through. Just a bit busy then. So you've heard from our amazing allies, from Chris, from John, and from Jessie, and it's good to see that you've most definitely got our backs.